Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. Every landscape photographer has been here. The scene is incredible, the light is perfect, but when you get home, the sky is completely blown out and the highlights are completely unrecoverable. And here's the crazy part. Your camera actually has a hidden setting designed to stop this from happening, and almost nobody uses it. It's buried deep in your menu, and if you're like me, you probably ignored it for years, but the first time I tested it, the results honestly impressed me. So today I'm going to show you exactly what highlight weighted metering does, how it compares to other metering modes, and whether it actually is a secret weapon for landscape photography or just another gimmick. By the end of this video, you will know if turning this on will save your skies or if you should just leave it buried in your menu system forever. Now, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about here, metering mode is how your camera evaluates the light of a scene to determine the correct shutter speed, aperture, or ISO to use in order to achieve a proper exposure. But here's the real challenge. Cameras are constantly guessing at what's most important in a scene. So if you're using matrix or evaluative metering, it's looking at the entire frame and averaging things out. And if there's a bright sky or snow or water, your camera is often going to get this wrong. That's why so many photos end up with overexposed highlights. Now, buried inside of your camera is a mode that takes a completely different approach. Instead of trying to balance the whole scene, it prioritizes just one single thing, the brightest tones, which on paper sounds like the perfect solution for landscape photography, but does it actually work? Here's a pretty cool way for you to test this out easily in the comfort of your own home. What you need to do is just take your camera, place it in aperture priority mode, then locate where you adjust the metering mode of your camera. So obviously make sure your camera is turned on. I'm gonna go over here to menu and scroll down or up to wherever you see metering. And you have, every camera has, different metering modes, but for the most part, you're gonna have matrix metering or evaluative metering. You're gonna have center weighted metering, spot metering, and highlight weighted metering. The nomenclature might change a little bit, but for the most part, most cameras today have those four. So what you can do is you can just start at the top here to matrix metering or evaluative metering, and that is going to evaluate the entire scene and just kind of average things together. So if you just point your camera up at a light source, if your camera is in aperture priority mode, you'll see that your shutter speed changes based off of wherever you basically point your camera, but it's averaging out the entire scene. Now, come back over here to the metering mode section. Let's select center weighted metering. When you do this, you'll more than likely see a giant circle on your LCD. And basically what your camera is going to do is anything that is inside of that circle is going to use that information to build its recommended light metering or the recommended adjustments for that area of the center of your scene. So if you point that center area to a light source and look at your shutter speed, because your camera is in aperture priority, you can see that wherever you put the center of your scene, everything is going to change. So if you point it at a light source, you can see your shutter speed change. If you point it to an area that's a little bit darker, you'll see your shutter speed change. So that is center weighted metering. Let's go back to the metering mode section. Let's go down to spot metering. Spot metering is actually pretty cool. You can see that where you can move the spot in your scene to anywhere and it's going to change your shutter speed. So if I bring it over here to this light source, you can see that the shutter speed gets very, very fast. Now I don't have to move my camera around in this scenario. I can just move the little center point, or not the center point, just the spot. So if I move it over here, it's a slower shutter speed. If I move it up by a light source, the shutter speed will get much quicker. So that is spot metering. Now, if I come back down to highlight weighted metering here, now this is where things get really, really interesting. Now, what's different about highlight weighted metering is you don't really have an area to point it at. It's more like evaluative or matrix metering because it's going to meter the entire scene. So it's not just the center area and it's not just a specific spot. It's going to meter the entire scene. So as I move this around, if I move it up here to the light source, once again, paying attention to that shutter speed, and if I move it away from the light source, you can see how things are changing here. So it's basically protecting all of the brightest tones in the scene or the highlights. And the biggest advantage of highlight weighted metering is that it automatically protects those highlights, the part of your image that, once it's gone, you can never truly get back. So instead of averaging the whole scene like matrix metering does, it prioritizes just the brightest areas, which means skies, snow, waterfalls. really hold on to their detail. This is especially useful during, fast changing lighting conditions, sunrise or sunset, when you don't always have time to ride the exposure compensation or double check the histogram. And with modern sensors being so good at lifting shadows, that slight underexposure is often not really a big deal. It essentially gives you a safety net in high contrast situations, letting you shoot confidently without worrying about blowing out those skies, ruining the entire file and never being able to recover those highlights. So once again, that is pretty cool. Whenever you can just point it up here to any kind of a light source and then take it away from the light source and just move it all the way around the scene in order to see that all it is doing, and it doesn't matter where the spot metering is. Like, see, if you move it over here, you can move it over there. It doesn't matter. Nothing's changing, and it's not based off of the center of the scene either. It is 100% taking into account the entire area to determine where are the brightest areas of the scene, and the eye being the camera is going to protect only those areas, or protect them the most, I should say. So at the end of the day, highlight weighted metering isn't some magic switch that will fix every photo, but in those tricky high contrast situations, it can be a real lifesaver. It really gives you that little extra protection where it matters most. And that can mean the difference between a blown out sky and a file with real editing potential. So if you've never tried it, I encourage you to test it out on your next sunrise or sunset, or in the comfort of your own home, and see how it compares to the way you normally would expose a photograph. For me, it's become one of those quiet little tools I keep in my back pocket, but it is really nice to know that it is there in certain situations. For me personally, I see the most benefit in the way that I shoot, that this would help me in a scenario where things are unfolding very, very quickly, and the light is changing quickly, and really, I would say for me, probably woodland scenarios would be the scenario where it could help me the most, just because as the sun is rising or the sun is setting in a woodland scenario, the light is coming in through the trees and it's bouncing back and forth, and the light shifts so much so quickly in a woodland scenario, to where I think that the highlight weighted metering would be very beneficial there. But it's one of those things, you just got to test it out. But the way it works is very, very straightforward, very simple, and it works pretty good. So I would highly encourage anyone who's never messed with any of your metering modes, definitely go through that exercise at home and see if that's something that you would find beneficial as well. So I do hope that information was helpful. And before I do wrap things up here, I just want to say a big thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace offers a stunning, user-friendly platform to build your website. With their Blueprint AI design system, you can showcase your photography and create a standout online presence with ease. Plus, built-in Squarespace SEO tools help your site appear in more searches, making it easier for the right customers to find you. And if you're looking to sell online, Squarespace's online store feature provides everything you need to sell your physical goods, digital content, or services seamlessly. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So I do hope this week's video was helpful. Highlight weighted metering is one of those things that I get asked about a lot on workshops and whether or not I actually use it. And I have used it before, but it's not something that I use all the time. But it is very, very good to become comfortable with it and to understand really how all of those different metering modes work. Your camera has so much technology built into it, so much power, and I feel like most of us, including myself, we only use a small fraction of it. So I feel like highlight weighted metering is one of those things that is a very nice to have in certain scenarios, but it's always good to have that in your back pocket, so to speak, of things that you fully understand and you know how to activate inside of your camera. If you have any questions about this week's video, if you could, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.